Jeremiah's Dad, an audio short story by Harold Dale James Robinson II, read by Harold Dale James Robinson II. It was just once, but that was enough for Mark's wife, the police, social services, the district attorney, the jury, the judge. After all, in this day and time, child abuse is unwarranted. 3 years. Jail. Nothing to say. The first year, Mark thought unbearable. Billings, his cellmate, was abused as a child and blamed his father for his current plight in life. To make things more horrid, Billings was infuriated at the reasons for Mark's imprisonment. "I'm going to show you what that's like," he retorted the first day and said very little after that. But it was a mistake fell on deaf ears. For the next day, and every few days after each occurrence, sometimes announced and sometimes without warning, Billings would punch Mark in the face. The infirmary had no time for trivial fights from the inmates, and his arm wasn't broken or something requiring more serious attention after all. Just try to stay out his way, the psychologist said. "I'll look into a cell transfer," the warden's secretary replied to Mark's request for a new cellmate. Nothing seemed to happen, but Mark started to get this twitchy, aching feeling down deep inside. Little things seemed to set anxiety off in the young father, and the beatings didn't help. Mark tried to write his son. He started the letter, but never finished. Again and again, sometimes days apart, sometimes weeks, he started to get used to the taste of his own blood in his mouth. The longer the year grew, Mark talked less and less and less about Billings. He even started working out, but he never really was a fighting man. Sometimes, Mark would lay awake at night and consider the events that brought him to jail, but somehow Billings would always end up on his mind. Obviously, physical assault on persons was against the rules, but in this environment, it seemed normal to the officers and other fellow prisoners. He made a few friends, but, like an unwanted, off-course comet, that conversation from the first night continued to manifest. As Billings always kept his word, "I only hit him once." Even after the transfer, the second year, Billings seems to always find Mark and make his life miserable. The short phone calls from his wife were more ritualistic than edifying. He started to think that people were really just putting up with him. He tried again to write the letter to his son, apologizing for the events that separated them from each other. But Mary never let him talk to Jeremiah and never bothered to bring the boy the 3 times she did visit that year. She was clearly upset and seemed more embarrassed at him than anything else. Other people beat on Mark too when they found out he was a child abuser, but it was only once. His plea never seemed to foster any amnesty. Naturally, the inmates went on to other things and forgot about Mark, but not Billings. Depression started coming onto Mark from nowhere, it seemed. All of a sudden, he was sullen and fell quiet for days at a time. He did try and fight back once. That did draw some attention, but his arm felt a lot less worse than his heart. 6 months in a cast and Billings in solitary confinement for a month. Billings was furious when he got out, blaming Mark probably. He just concentrated on creating bruises without further medical incident. Mary was surprised that Mark said very little, almost joked away about his black eye. Mark was surprised that she quit visiting him after that. It almost started to seem that this man Billings was the only real friend Mark had. A silent quiet started to come, and the young father quit counting the days and started to lose emotion, accepting whatever scar or bruise accompanied his mirror's image. Like a clock ticking, it wasn't life, but time was moving. The morning routine, lunch, afternoon, dinner, night, the occasional punch in the face, no one seemed to notice anymore. The third year, it was life, normal. Maybe he'll beat me today or not. Mark didn't like his life, but that's what it was. The pain almost became normal, but the expectancy of Billings taking out the days or weeks' frustration didn't seem to make it any easier to bear. It's my fault I'm here, Mark told the psychiatrist, but he never told her that he began to attribute even his original cellmate's gross misunderstanding of justice to himself. Or was Billings misunderstanding justice? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Mark was long past sorry for his crime, but the punishment seemed to never end, rather grow. He couldn't figure out why he hit his child or why Billings thought to hit him. It had to have been something trivial, but the overbearing reality clouded the past to the degree that Mark deemed it didn't matter why. His crime, Billings, he didn't venture to pick up a pen to write his son until his last day. There was nothing to say. 3 years had disfigured the optimistic, outgoing young father into a timid, quiet man. He looked at his last days in prison, expecting to see Billings any moment, with the sick expectation of the beating to hurry up and finish and be over with. He never saw his first cellmate his last day. The day before, he didn't even flinch. Mark thought it best to hand deliver his letter to his son.